Today is Wednesday, July 28th, and this is Tokyo Daily, the brand new Tokyo 2020 all-encompassing Olympics show from the Toronto Star. I'm your host, Brendan Dunlop. Make it 6 for Penny from the 6. I know it's been said everywhere, but I had to say it here on Tokyo Daily. Penny Oleksiak won her second medal of these Olympics, taking bronze in the 200-meter freestyle, a race that she didn't even attempt in Rio when she won her first 4 Olympic medals, you'll remember, as a 16-year-old. Oleksiak now, the face of Canadian swimming, one of the biggest names at the Olympics for Team Canada. And with 6 medals, she's now the most decorated summer Olympian. She's tied with cyclist and speed skater Clara Hughes and speed skater Cindy Clausen for the most Olympic medals ever for Canadian athletes, but no doubt she'll blow that out of the water. She might in Tokyo. Oleksiak plans to swim in the 4x200 meter freestyle relay. That's on Thursday. The 100 meter freestyle, which is where she won gold in Rio, that goes on Friday. Then there's the 4x100 meter relay, which is on Sunday. You might see Oleksiak in. Going to see a lot more Penny, which is incredible. And it's incredible what Canadians have done in the pool in Tokyo at these games. When you remember that because of COVID, especially in Ontario, serious restrictions kept swimmers out of the water so much longer than in most places. Bruce Arthur wrote in his front page story in the Toronto Star that no nation spent more time out of the pool than Canada in the world. And until just recently, Canadian coaches were actually instructing their swimmers via video. I honestly could not imagine that. But Bruce also mentions how the pandemic was good for Oleksiak, how she was able to fall in love with training again, and how it built up her confidence to even compete in the 200 meter freestyle, which, as I said, she didn't try in Rio. Bronze was her reward for giving it a go in Tokyo. Simone Biles made front pages around the world for withdrawing from the Team USA gymnastics event after bailing on a vault attempt. She is perhaps the biggest face of these games. In the moment, the reaction was, well, she must be injured. But Biles afterwards, in a post-event press conference, admitted she took herself out of the team because she knew she wasn't in the right headspace and that her team had a better chance of winning without her. Later on Wednesday, she withdrew from the all-around event, meaning that we'll see a new gold medalist in Tokyo. I'll talk with my guest in a minute about what her brave choice means for her and for other Olympians. On the topic of the pressures that Olympic athletes face, the Toronto Star's Rosie DiMeno is also in Tokyo. Wrote a story about Canadian track star Melissa Bishop and the challenges of maintaining an elite performance level as a 32-year-old mother. Track and field officially gets underway on Thursday. The women are the stars of these games. Canadian women took the first 12 medals in Rio, and Canadian women have won the first 9 Canadian medals in Tokyo. I'm very excited to be joined by an old friend from our days at The Score and our days at Sportsnet, Arash Madani. Mr. Olympics is how Ken Reed and several other people would call you, because every time the Olympics come around, Arash, you're never in Canada. You're always there at these games, but you're not in Tokyo. So this is a totally different experience for you too.
Totally different experience. Damn COVID, Dunlop. But here we are and getting a chance to watch. It's funny because when you're in person, it's this weirdest thing. You can only be at one event. You can only be in one place at one time. Usually we're chasing where Canadian medals may be. Now I have a chance with the remote to, watch 4 or 5 different things at the same time. So it's amazing how good some of these athletes really are.
It's amazing how good the coverage has been as well, to be able to watch everything that CBC has made available. Penny Oleksiak in the pool again with another medal. I don't think we should be surprised maybe, but coming into these games, Penny Oleksiak was the quiet superstar, and the Canadian swim team of all those swim programs really had the most complicated and difficult time, it seemed, preparing for these games. What the swimmers had to go through to be able to be ready to compete. It's remarkable that they've succeeded in the pool the way they have, but maybe we shouldn't be surprised because Penny is as good as she's shown.
Yeah, and look, it's funny you say, well, Oleksiak was almost a given, and we're just talking about the most prolific Canadian Olympian ever just being a given. Right. And she really shouldn't be, because she had so many mental obstacles and so many personal obstacles that she had to overcome after Rio, and she's figured herself out as a person. She was a teenager, a phenom that just exploded onto the national landscape and really had to understand who and what she was as a person to get herself figured out and then really translate that into her swimming. But the story that, to me, in the pool that won't get as much attention is Kylie Moss, who out of nowhere in Rio wins the bronze in the backstroke and then follows that up with a silver. And here's somebody who had been in the shadows, who hadn't really been talked about, And not only did she deliver again, but she upgraded herself. And so realistically, Brendan, she went bronze to silver. They told me there'd be no math, so it's going to be gold in Paris, right? Like that's the next step. But that to me was as impressive a performance as anything we've seen in the pool.
It's been an impressive games for Canadian women. It's been the women's games across the board. When it comes to superstars for the Americans, oftentimes it's the superstars on the dream team. Kevin Durant is there. They do have plenty of stars. But without LeBron at these games, the most famous American Olympian, and without Michael Phelps at these games, is Simone Biles. And Simone Biles made the decision to put her mental health before competing because she couldn't hit the performance mark that she expects of herself. And it's something we just haven't seen before. And for someone who has felt the pressure over the last 5 years, probably more than anyone, it was a very mature move from someone who may not have felt comfortable or able to do that even just a few years ago at Rio.
Yeah, and we'll get to Biles in a moment. I just want to put Katie Ledecky in that same conversation too, and she just followed it up again tonight, winning the gold in the 1500. Right. She and Phelps were right there in the swimming stratosphere and the Team USA stratosphere, and she and Biles are 1 and 1A on Team USA. And as this Biles story has unfolded, Brendan, I think about how many Olympians over the years in so many different sports for so many other countries who had to deal with this alone, who had to deal with this without any support from their federation, from their National Olympic Committee, and ultimately from the public, let alone from sponsors and everybody else. And even Phelps has created his own series and documentary talking about the mental anguish and the mental pain and the mental pressures and what that does to a young person. These are humans, after all. They're not just, performance machines, even though when the lights come on, when the gun goes off, they appear to be. Simone Biles made a decision that was unselfish to her team and that was proper for herself. And now in 2021, in most circles, she's being celebrated for it. And as great as that is, I just can't help but think how many for generations were in that very same spot and couldn't do that and may have crumbled and may have taken, had to deal with controversy and embarrassment publicly because of their performance, even though they were dealing with some demons that at that time and still now can be taboo to talk about.
Well, Simone Biles stepping out of the team on the same day that Naomi Osaka's Olympic dream ends. So much pressure for her being a Japanese and a national hero, and so much pressure over the last few months for the comments that she made about the media and wanting to prioritize her own mental health. How do you think her competitive exit will be treated?
It's amazing that so much of the attention was on the press conference stuff, when in reality, what Osaka said was, I just needed a break. And what we've learned is that she was told in March that she was going to be the one to light the cauldron at the opening ceremony. And it's Osaka who has 50 plus sponsors. So think about the start of the spring and just how much was mounting leading into the French Open, which she ultimately withdrew from, and of course didn't play Wimbledon as well. There was a lot financially, there's a lot from a pressure standpoint as a Japanese, as an athlete representing Japan as the host country that was riding on it. I don't think there will be much backlash for, an early exit for Osaka, but I do think that she and Biles have opened up a conversation that is not going away. It felt like DeMar DeRozan started it with the NBA scene, that it became okay to talk about, comfortable being uncomfortable, having that conversation. Kevin Love followed suit. Now we're seeing elite amateur athletes who are global stars and other professional athletes who are global icons talk about this. And that's the takeaway from where I sit.
Felix Auger Aliassime, as someone who didn't have the experience of most teenagers, chasing his professional dream and reaching the heights that he has in the tennis world, to go to the Olympics and, as he said, live like a college student for the first time. The anticipation was that perhaps he might have a long games himself. He was supposed to come up against Andy Murray in his first tie, and came Max Purcell, and that ended very quickly.
Well, I'll say this about Felix. This literally was a dream come true for him. Felix always wanted to be an Olympian. Felix always wanted to suit up in the Olympic Games for Canada. This mattered significantly to him, personally. And Brendan, coming over to Tokyo and then having to go back to North America, suiting up in these Olympics for Auger Aliassime is not a smart tennis decision. Is not a smart decision for his professional career at all. He is putting himself behind the 8 ball going into the Canadian Stop on Tour, Cincinnati and New York. How much does this mean to him? This dude loses in the first round of singles, could easily have come home after to resume his pro career. He's sticking around to play mixed doubles for Canada because he made a commitment to Team Canada, to the tennis team, to do it. And so I think you learned a lot about Felix Auger Aliassime, the competitor, from the standpoint of, I came here to be part of Team Canada. I wanted to be an Olympian, and I'm going to see this through. And he's doing so, in the short term, the detriment of his late summer, early fall 2021 season, because this is not going to help him for the 2 1,000 tournaments before the US Open, and it certainly is not going to help him for that slam in New York, being over there and dealing with the heat and the jet lag and the turnaround. But he said, I want to be an Olympian. I want to be in Tokyo. And he's living up to everything he said he was going to do.
Well, 2 of Canada's most notable Olympians in the sand, Sarah Pavan and Melissa-Humana Paredes, you know very well. And you sat down with them ahead of the Olympic Games. What did you learn from your chat with those 2 medal hopefuls?
Yeah, I don't know if I know them well. We had a chance to visit a few months before the pandemic hit. And it's interesting, here you have somebody who's quite tall, and here you have somebody quite short. And Pavan was the first to tell me, look, our personalities are quite different. That Pavan's the introvert and reserved, and Melissa's so bubbly and outgoing. And the one thing Pavan said is, we don't try and change each other, that we respect each other's differences. We allow the other person to be who they are without judgment. And that has led to respect and trust, and to have harder conversations. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean harder conversations? And what Humana Paredes said, she said those talks come from disappointment on what we would consider a failed opportunity. And we would have hard conversations that usually involve tears and arguing and vulnerability and things you probably don't want to hear when you look in the inside of yourself. But what Humana Paredes said, she said, it's just so important to have someone who's on your side with the same goals, and you say, hey, we're in this together, but I need more from you. And you can come out of those conversations feeling more comfortable and knowing, hey, we can do more to perform at our potential. Brendan, you've been around sports a long time. But to have a partnership, to have a team that's able to do that, willing to do that, to have those kind of difficult conversations with the pursuit of, we together want to get there, and it's going to be difficult to get there. We have to look inside of ourselves to get there. This partnership has done that. They're world champions a couple of years ago, and look, very early in these games, I meant to tweet it before the Olympics started, but I got busy. I actually feel, I know there's a lot of attention in the pool, and the DeGrasse show's about to start in track and field.
Yes, it is.
I think that this partnership of Sarah Pavan and Melissa-Humana Paredes, they will be in the conversation for flag bearer for the closing ceremony for Team Canada. I'm not saying they're going to get it. I'm saying they'll be in the conversation for it.
There you go. Well, there'll be a lot of conversation when track and field starts. What are you most looking forward to?
It's DeGrasse. It's DeGrasse. I mean, the 3 medals in Rio, and now no Bolt. So now everyone's not running for silver. Everyone's not competing for second on the podium. He was very clear in Rio. He said, I hope they're going to be gold come Tokyo. Here we go, Andre. Spotlight's on you. Every commercial we are seeing, doesn't matter if it's a credit card company or a website company or a grocery company, There's Andre DeGrasse front and center. And he's been building towards this. He's, the target has been Tokyo. So here we are. And on the 25th anniversary of Donovan Bailey's Olympic gold and the 25th anniversary of the 4x100 meter gold in Atlanta, here comes the next great Canadian sprinter with the opportunity to fully kind of grab that torch and take off with it, literally and figuratively, as the next generation of great Canadian runners.
Well, I knew this would be a golden conversation, Arash Madani, so thank you very much for coming on Tokyo Daily.
All right, thanks, Brendan.
On day 6, Sarah Pavan and Melissa-Humana Paredes are back in the sand. They're playing a Swiss duo in women's beach volleyball. I love the Arash's reaction to their unique dynamic. Really is great chemistry that they have. Kia Nurse and the Canadian women's basketball team hitting the court again tonight. They'll play South Korea. That's Thursday morning for them. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. for us. After a tough opening loss to Serbia, the Canadian women's team definitely going to want to start hot and find their rhythm early. I'm glad you found this show. You can watch Tokyo Daily every day during the Olympic Games on the Toronto Star's YouTube page. Download, listen, subscribe, leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll talk with Toronto Star writer Dave Feshuk on tomorrow's edition of Tokyo Daily. Thanks for listening to today's. I'll talk to you tomorrow.